Here I am with your February market update here in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex, actually the south side of the Metroplex. I'm Stephanie Deeds. I'm the broker owner and still active realtor with Point Realty, and I have some data for you. Now, when people ask me, how's the market? My answer has quickly become, well, it depends on where you are and what you have and what your goals are, okay? This market update is something that proves that so clearly. Now, let me just, before I go into the details of our hyper-local information, I will say I watched a national market update yesterday where basically talked about how inflation is steadying and the jobs report, is, up and down, but it's pretty much maintaining, and that interest rates are the lowest they've been in 3 years, and there's all this information out there about the general economy. One of the things that they talked about was how our numbers in January were lower than anticipated, partly because of weather, actually. Now, I think nationally, here in Dallas-Fort Worth, we did have a solid week of ice where people couldn't get out of their house. We couldn't go show property. It was very difficult to get any work done that week because our job is such a physical in and out. You got to get around and see what's going on out there. So there's probably people who were delayed in listing their homes. There are people who were delayed in purchasing. So although it could be, there could also be economic indicators combined with that. There is some weather things that happened in January. And that wasn't just here, that was sort of across the country. The winter storms were sort of all over. So that had a national impact for sure. So I thought that was interesting. We are expecting a recovery, and we're not going to be, as they say, off to the races necessarily, but we do anticipate in 2026 a steady climb. Interestingly enough, you can see that recovery in certain areas and not necessarily in others. So for example, I want to talk to you about Mansfield. In Mansfield, if you look at December's average price, it's at $496. And then in January, it dropped to $466. And it's like, oh my gosh, that's a huge jump. Okay, there was much less activity in January. That doesn't mean prices dropped that much. That means that the average price of homes and transactions being done dropped that much. But guess what? In February, we're back up to $485. So we went $496, $466, $485. So the recovery that national update was talking about, you could actually see that happen in Mansfield, where December was high. It was a busy month. January, very little activity, lower prices, and now February there is this recovery happening. And I would fully anticipate, don't quote me on it, I'm not making any wagers, but I would hope that next month when I do this, March's numbers are going to show that we're right back up to where we were in December. So overall, when you're looking at increases over time, we can't always look at 30 days to here to there, because real estate is an ever-changing and long-term investment. But if you look at Arlington, in December, Arlington was at 378. In January, it was at 372. So we didn't see that crazy reduction or lowering in Arlington the way we did in Mansfield. But in February, it was 357. So that's not a huge jump. It's not like we lost, $100,000 or something crazy. And I also anticipate that we'll see a recovery in March in Arlington as well. But I think it's interesting that the numbers did such a different thing in Arlington versus Mansfield. So in Burleson, we've seen actually a drop in February as well. All these numbers are attached so that you can take a look at the spreadsheet. Midlothian actually had a huge increase. Midlothian's got a lot of growth, a lot of new construction, and they went from about 500 to 550. That's a pretty big difference from 25 to 26 if you're looking at the month of February. So that's a very interesting thing. Inventory, I will say inventory is actually down a little bit if we're looking at number of homes for sale, which again, we've seen an increase in inventory. That's one of the reasons that the market is more of a buyer's market at the moment. Buyers have a little bit more leverage. The last statistic I read said that there's 45% more buyers than there are sellers right now. And so that is definitely impacting the market. But in the month of February, our inventory is down versus what it was last year. And that is pretty much across the board. I'm looking at Mansfield, Arlington, Burleson, Midlothian. All of those have a lower number in February of this year than they had in February of last year. Inventory from from December to January to February, that has increased a little bit. So well, actually, I'm lying, it decreased. In December, we had like 320 homes, in January, 300, and now in February, 288. So that's number of homes listed for sale in Mansfield. Okay, so we did see a little bit of a reduction in the number of homes for sale over the last 90 days. Number of days on market. This is an interesting one as well. Sorry, I keep looking at my notes because all of this data is very interesting and I have to make sure I stay on track with it. Mansfield, we have seen actually a reduction in days on market. In February of 25, that number was 82, and just this last month it was 69. So we saw a reduction in days on market. But in December, it was 75. So actually February is more days on market than December, but much fewer than it was this time last year. Arlington kind of stayed steady. Burleson had a reduction. Midlothian had a reduction. This is all very good news, guys. I know that if you're a seller, it doesn't feel like good news. If you're a seller, anecdotally, you're thinking, gosh, my house has been on the market for 30 days or 60 days or 90 days or however long it's taking. And that's the reality of the situation. There are still homes that are selling in 2, 3, 4, 5 days. And then there's homes that are taking 30, 60, 90, 120 days to sell. So like I started this video saying, when someone asks me how the market is, I typically say it depends on who you are, not who you are, that's the wrong thing. It depends on where you are and what you have and what your goals are. And so if those are questions that you already have an answer to and you would like to know more about what that means for your specific property, for your specific goals, I would love to answer those questions. The number of closed homes, one thing I wanted to not forget to tell you is that we are down in the number of sales closed from February of this year to February of last year. It's, again, not a huge, giant reduction, but we are down a little bit. And so that's one of the things we're hoping to see recover as we go into further 2026. So I'm hoping that we'll see an increase in sales in March and in April and in May, and we'll get some bigger numbers on the board so that we can start to see some of these listings coming off the market and actually getting sold. So if you have questions, again, about your specific situation, if you have questions about this report, always happy to answer them. Reach out. We'd love to talk to you. And thanks for watching.